And so now we have the Terror of Mechagodzilla, the end of the Showa era, and it ends the first era of Godzilla on a kind of note. Kind of like in the last movie. It's the same kind of main antagonist. Here's some aliens. They want to conquer Earth. What was their planet? I think they named it as like Black Hole Planet 3. They didn't even really try with the name. I did not care. I was not invested. I was kind of unclear. It's like, are these the same aliens from the last movie? I think, but I also not sure. But they're trying to recover Mechagodzilla and like try to fix Mechagodzilla so they can take over the world. There's also this new kaiju that's been found in the water called Titanosaurus, which I don't know if this is what they were going for, but to me, this kind of like half dinosaur, half seahorse kind of look to him, and we'll talk a bit more about him a little bit later, but I kind of liked Titanosaurus. It doesn't appeal to me the way that King Caesar does, but he's way cooler than King Caesar ever could be. So, like, I'll give him that. The movie starts with stock footage of the last Mechagodzilla movie, and aside from that stock footage, Godzilla doesn't show up until 48 minutes in, and this, for me, was definitely a movie where I noticed the lack of... I mean, you've always kind of noticed when you haven't seen Godzilla in a while, but I'm like, This movie needs like 10 cc's of Godzilla stat, man. Which is funny to me, because the humans in this movie are interesting. Not in the, like, I'm super invested interesting, but it's interesting because I'm not invested, because I see what they're trying to do, and I'm kind of on board with it. There's a human who's working with the aliens. Not because he's being coerced into it like the dude from the last movie, but because he's like, yeah, I don't care about the human race. I was a researcher. I researched Titanosaurus. I let people know. We got dinosaurs. We have big-ass monsters. And no one believed me. You know, they called me what's the line from Freakazoid? It's like, they called me insane, crazy, Wendell. They did that to him. And he was disgraced, he was called a lunatic, a whack. And now that Titanosaurus is real and people want to believe him, he's like, yeah, no one believed me back then. You ruined my life, so fuck you, I'm working with the aliens. It's kind of interesting to me. His daughter died? Question mark. Was he badly injured or died? It kind of seems like she died during an experiment where she got electrocuted. The aliens came in, took her body, operated on her, turned her into a cyborg, and now she's a cyborg. She has some kind of connection to Titanosaurus. Not really sure how it works. And then at one point she has a strong connection to Mechagodzilla because she's actively controlling him. There's a really interesting way that was written where I think I actually wrote the line down. They said their hatred will merge and lead to an orgy of violence. Like, okay, like that's kind of it. I'm kind of on board with this. And I feel like the elements there for the elements of a good human story are there, but for whatever reason, I just didn't feel a strong connection while watching it, and to the other human characters that it actually has a... Like, there's this guy that she really likes that's interested in her, that, you know, believed her father even before all this other crap with Titanosaurus. It was like, no, like, I actively, like, believed your father and have researched this stuff. Like, I should be invested here. I'm just not. There's Interpol agents again, and they're not nearly as cool as Namoro was in the last movie, and it's not working for me as much as it, like, really could. But then we get the fight. We get Titanosaurus, Mechagodzilla, fighting Godzilla. Titanosaurus is a menace. He's putting up a good fight. There's a scene where Mechagodzilla, like, blasts Godzilla and essentially buries him, and Titanosaurus is literally, like, dancing an Irish jig on Godzilla's grave. And it's so freaking funny. I was talking about this in the last movie because I got my wires crossed, but there's this scene in the movie where Mechagodzilla is just blasting Goji with everything he has, like the mouth beam, eye beam, missile blasts, and you can feel the "I hate you." You ripped my head off in the last movie. You're a piece of shit. I want you dead. And Godzilla just keeps coming for him. He's getting blasted and taking everything. And finally reaches him. I thought he was going to rip off his arm. He didn't. He, like, breaks Mechagodzilla's arm, rips his head off again, realizes Mechagodzilla's still alive. Is like, you want more? I got it. It's so cool. It's so fun. One thing I noticed in this movie is they actually played the classic Godzilla theme quite a few times, which hadn't been, it felt like it'd been a while since I actually heard it in a movie. Like, I'm watching Godzilla box Titanosaurus, I was like, bah, 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 bah. I was like, this is wonderful. I know this isn't, like, an intentional bookend, because apparently, from what I understand, there were supposed to be other movies in the Showa era, they just never got made. But since it is the last in the Showa era, it feels really good to hear the music in this movie. That's kind of it, all there is to say. I like the fight with Titanosaurus is fun. Like, he has a lot of swagger, just kind of a lot of personality. Mechagodzilla's cool as hell, but Godzilla takes care of them both, and the movie ends with Godzilla walking into the ocean. And again, given that this is the last movie, just seeing Godzilla, again, of the era, Godzilla just going back into his habitat after kicking ass and saving the world. There's something kind of nice about that. Like, I feel like this is... I had more fun watching versus Mechagodzilla. I think Terror of Mechagodzilla theoretically has stronger elements. It just, for whatever reason, didn't really come together until the ending. Which, to be fair, kind of a lot of Godzilla movies are like that. I'm like, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. I don't care. Oh, the monster fight. Yeah, the monster fight's great. Like, Megalon is not good for most of the movie. And then as soon as Jet Jaguar gets involved, and it just devolves into this really long WWE routine, I'm like, okay, no, wait, this movie fucks. But that's Terror of Mechagodzilla. I liked it enough. I think talking through it, I'm more positive than I was just like after I watched it. But that is the end of the Showa era. I don't think I'm going to do a video on the Showa era, do a tier list. I'll just kind of tier all the Godzilla movies when I'm done with them all. It's going to be like 48 movies. That's going to be a long... Wait, is it 48 or 38? I think, yeah, it's 38, which is still going to be a pretty decently long tier list. But looking forward to it. I would say my thoughts overall, Gojira is still my favorite of the movies. I think my second favorite is pretty firmly Hedorah. My favorite monster, aside from Goji, Hedorah is up there. Mechagodzilla is up there. Ghidorah from Three-Headed Monster specifically is up there, but he kind of just looks worse in every subsequent film. I don't know if I would put Gigan quite as high as those, but maybe on the tier right below. I think I'd probably put Mothra up there too. I had a good time with it. I'm glad that I'm actually going through the Godzilla films. I'm glad that I was able to watch the Showa era. They're not all winners. All Monsters Attack exists. And even then, so does Godzilla Raids Again and Evita, which I didn't particularly like either. But for me, I feel like there were more movies that I genuinely enjoyed than ones that I actively disliked or were totally bored during. And even the movies that I don't like Ibira or Raids Again, there's usually something in there where I'm like, okay, I'm really glad I went to see that. Not went to see this, I didn't go see them in theaters. Like, I'm glad I saw this. This was worth my time for this reason or this reason, and it's usually just the monsters, but that's why we're here. So after this, Clay and I are going to go back to watching Adventure Time. I'm excited to watch more Adventure Time, and then we'll do the Heisei era, which will be Return of Godzilla.